The recording, you are here for the summer PSHE network meeting. I'm Sophie. I'll be hosting the meeting today. Folks are just introducing themselves to each other in the chat, and as they do that, we'll be getting going with the session today. Great. Let me just find the bit where I can click the slides. Lovely. Has that moved on for everybody or not? No, now it has. Great. So, as is the case in any PSHE experience, we start with a group agreement. So participate, engage, however is best for you. If you're someone who needs to ask lots of questions and do lots of engaging, then absolutely do that. Feel free to take notes. I will send all the slides. Obviously, we are recording now. If you are somebody who needs to sit back, relax, and experience it just as an audio content only, that's also absolutely fine. However, you need to take in the information. Do feel free to stay on mute throughout, because as I said, we're recording and we've got a nice chunk of people here today. However, if you've got a question, pop your hand up using the function or put it in the chat. I can see the chat, so I should see it. Colleagues, if I miss a question, feel free to interrupt me. Please do remember confidentiality. So there's really no need, I wouldn't have thought, to be discussing individual pupils, parents, or situations on the call here today. If you have got something you'd like to chat about, just remember Manchester is more of a village than a city, and try not to disclose anything to anybody. If you want to talk about a scenario one-on-one, then do let me know and we can absolutely arrange that. And if anything comes up in the session today that makes you think you need to action that urgently from a safeguarding perspective, obviously feel free to step away. We have a break scheduled today, if and only if everything runs to time. If not, and you need a break, again, step away at any point. It is being recorded, and I won't heckle you if I see you leave the screen, I promise. There's lots of good potato chat coming through in chips and mash over roast. Yes, I mean, it's a deeply controversial position that we have in our team as to whether a mash should be part of a roast. Did I do the bit where I said me? This is me. If you need me, this is how you can contact me. Pronouns are they and them, by the way, if we've not met before and you need to talk about me afterwards. You can use my name or you can use those pronouns. My favourite form of potato is a hash brown, and I'll be taking no other answers because that is the correct answer. Just kidding. Great. All right, let's get going proper. So this is what it's going to look like today. Healthy schools from us starting off, then our invited speakers, and then a focus in on the RSHE consultation. If you're watching the recording, then just to reiterate what I said at the beginning, the consultation chat is coming. It's coming in about an hour's time. You're very welcome, in fact, encouraged to watch the rest of what's happening here today because it's important, relevant, and something that you should be listening to. However, we're all busy people. So if you need to skip forward to that, you can. If you're watching live, you can't, but you can make a cup of tea and enjoy the ride. Okay. So just want to quickly overview the Healthy Schools team. I had a few people email me today saying this was their first ever PSHE network meeting. Welcome, friends. It's so good to have you here. With that in mind, just wanted to quickly remind folks who we are, not what we do, because that would take all day, but this is who we are. So this is the spectrum of service that we offer. We have folks that are specialised in each of these areas. And they're here to support you. Their names are on the side here. Special mention to Chloe Mead. Chloe Mead, have a little wave. Chloe's our brand shiny new team lead and post as of last Monday. Well, in post for a bit, but started on Monday. We are really lucky to have her. She's a really good egg, and she will be here to answer any of your high-level questions beyond the individual specialists. But yeah, I just wanted to say, if you recognise, our previous lead was Helen, she's left, and Chloe's now here, so just to recognise that. You'll also notice the PSHE lead there. It doesn't say my name. This is my last PSHE network meeting. My role is a maternity leave cover role, and Eleanor Coleman-Reid, who you may have met previously, will be returning on July the 7th, which is fantastic news because she's also a great egg. And so PSHE needs up until the 5th of July. I'm your guy. July the 7th onwards, it's Ellie. Needs over the weekend, hopefully you won't have. So there you go. That's us. We're going to do a quick update on the cycle of healthy schools, and for that I'm going to hand over to my colleague Kat. Kat, you're welcome to take control, or I can click, whichever you'd like.
Lovely. I'll leave you in charge. Thank you very much.
No
Hello.
worries.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you've not met me yet, I am Kat. I am the Relationships and Sex Education lead. But today I'm talking to you generally about your role in healthy schools and kind of where we are at in the calendar. We are kind of joyfully skipping towards the end of the year. I know that seems like far away at this point, fresh from the term, but this term is kind of the important part, as most of you are either PSHE leads or Healthy Schools coordinators or both, or involved in that process. Sophie, I'll just keep on that same screen, please. Where you are at the moment is hopefully at the beginning of the year in the autumn term, you will have met your Healthy Schools link, your Healthy Schools coordinator, you will have done an action plan and you would have set some targets for the year. Hopefully you will have been having a think about those, actioning some of those. You might have delivered some training, you might have had policy reviews, you might have done a school project, and you might be kind of starting to develop evidence towards the targets that you've set. At this point in the year, you are welcome to and invited to kind of check in with your Healthy Schools coordinator. We're here at any time. I'm sure some of you are my allocated schools, and you can probably see some of your Healthy Schools leads here as well. And they are here at this point in the year if you want to check in and have a meeting to chat about where you are up to, what you've done. If there are things that you've still not done that you wanted to achieve this academic year, you're fine to drop in with us. That is an optional invitation. You don't have to do that at all. You might be very fine cracking on by yourself. Sophie, if we skip on one, we'll have a look at what that looks like in terms of towards this last few weeks of term, over the next 2 months ahead, you'll be logging into our school website, double checking your action plan targets, the goals that you set ahead of yourself. There's a box where you can upload your evidence to say, photographs of what you've done, policies that you've had reviews, whatever that evidence looks like, and that will help progress your score. So you can tick off what you've done. Do not worry if you haven't done something. You can roll those goals over for the year ahead. We'd much prefer you to have those deeply embedded and still working on, rather than just ticking them off if they're still kind of in development. Yes, the year ahead isn't over. There's obviously a lot of time, but this is just me planting the seed for you to kind of have those conversations in your head of, oh, what did we agree in September, October time? How are we getting on with that? And an opportunity for you to review that with your allocated Healthy Schools link, should you want to. And also at this time, obviously, we're planning for the year ahead. The cycle starts again come September, so we'll be launching our new health check. And when you do your health check for next year, so academic year 2024 to 25, have a think if any of those goals need to continue over to next year, if any of them have been ticked off, that you now need to look at a different focus area. So you're kind of thinking about last year and next year at the same time, to kind of make that cyclical approach and a cohesive line. So I've put a deadline here, the 24th of July. That is the time when by the time that we want you to have uploaded any evidence. Again, it's not compulsory that you do, but if you want to show us what you've done, that's great. And if you do upload things or make comments in your health check action plan area, please just drop a quick email to your Healthy Schools contact link, just to let them know what you've done, what you've edited, what notes you've made, and that will help us review where you're up to, and that will help the conversations that we have again at the beginning of the year next year. So anything you want to do, if there's anything you action just from me waving this in front of you today, log in to your Healthy Schools account, have a look at your targets, refresh yourself with what you intended to do at the beginning of the year, and get that evidence kind of like thought about before then. Okay, so that's 24th of July. Next, we'll have a look at our Healthy Schools Awards, which is really exciting. We have had so many schools submit fantastic submissions for our Healthy Schools Annual Awards. You can see all of the different areas that we have got nominations for on the board. If you wonderful schools submitted an application for that. Thank you very much. The team are pouring through those this week. If you are a winner, you will be invited to the Healthy Schools Award ceremony, which I believe is on the next slide, which is on the 16th of July. So we're hosting that at William Holmes Grammar School. A massive thank you to them for hosting that celebration for us. If you submitted a nomination, you'll hear back by us if you were successful and you'll be invited to this. Hopefully you will have had this save the date sent to you when you submitted this. If not, it's here. On that celebration day, what to expect is best case practice case studies presented by schools. We'll see what everyone's been up to throughout the year, and it's a really nice place to showcase what everyone has been doing and recognise achievements, but refreshments. So a lovely part of the year. If you haven't submitted anything this year, please think about it next year. It's a really great way to kind of showcase what your school does. You all do amazing things every year. Have a conversation with your Healthy Schools link come September, October at the beginning of next year's cycle. If you're interested in going for one of the awards, you just saw those on screen. There's lots of things right from community engagement, pupil engagement, parent inclusion. We've got equality and diversity, there's staff development, there's all kinds of awards that you can go for, but do have that conversation if you want an extra target for the year ahead. Lovely. I think I'm done with my section of Healthy Schools. Sophie.
Great. Thank you so much, Kat. Looking forward to seeing folks on the 16th. Just to say that a reminder, I always try and give people actionable things to do. One of the main ways we communicate with you is via the bulletin. It comes out every 2 weeks. The next one is June the 18th, as I'm sure everyone is aware, waiting with bated breath. But no, it is important to read through those bulletins. If that's one thing you do, then we recommend that. So maybe schedule it in so that you know that it's coming and that you can read through. We know they're long and we know they're wordy, but we just have so much to tell you. So I always remind people of that. Then one other thing, oh no, we'll go to Zane first, sorry. Zane, we'll come into you and then we'll have the one other thing.
Not to worry at all. Thanks so much, Sophie. Hi, everybody. I'm sure you may know of who I am, but if you don't, my name is Zane Iqbal. I'm the mental health lead at Healthy Schools, and I just have a very quick few updates regarding mental health support for schools and what we're doing. So this was just a bit of a plug, really. Just as you're attending the PSHE Leads Network, I also run a mental health leads network. So it is it's an opportunity very similar to this for you and your school community to keep in touch with what's new and relevant in the area of mental health. It's really, really popular and it's continuing to grow. We host 3 different mental health lead networks across the year, same as the PSHE ones. And it's basically an invitation for either yourself or the designated senior mental health lead in your setting to come and attend. It is the final one of this year, so there's some important updates regarding a few different things happening across the city and some services and organizations that you may be interested in who can provide support to your school regarding mental health related provision. So the link is right there on the screen. Hopefully it is clickable. However, if you can't click it, just head to our website and just go onto the network section as you did with the PSHE network and sign up to that. Like I said, you are more than welcome to attend as a PSHE coordinator. I will not be stopping you if you want to hear some mental health related updates. But I also just ask for you to let your senior mental health lead know, or whoever it is as the designated person overlooking the mental health sort of area and provision in your school, to let them know of the network. It is taking place on Tuesday, the 2nd of July, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And it's a virtual network once again. So online, you can grab yourself a brew and have a sit and listen to all the fantastic updates that we have got going on. And next slide, Sophie. And then another thing I want to highlight to you as well is that we're continually looking to improve basically the service and what we can provide for you. The mental health area, as you're very much aware, is one that is quite turbulent sometimes. There's lots of updates, lots of changes, and we want to make sure that the service that we're providing as the school health service, so not just Healthy Schools. So we sit under the umbrella of the school health service, which has a wide variety of teams in it. Namely, the team that's kind of the most relevant to this is the school nursing team. So we want to get your thoughts and opinions and views on what we think we could be doing better, how you're finding the service, school health service so far in the area of mental health. So your input is invaluable in that. And without your contributions, as it says on the screen, we are able to address our gaps and ensure we can provide the service that schools and pupils rightfully deserve. So The link to the survey is on the screen. This is your opportunity as a school to have a direct input as to what you will receive in the next sort of academic year, what is available to you. So if there's things you want to address or things that you think that there are gaps in our provision that you would like to see more of, please do take the opportunity to fill out the school health service mental health survey. As I said, the QR code is on the screen for you, so you can scan that and you can quickly do it off your smartphone, or the desktop link is there for you as well. So we're just trying to get as many people as possible to fill this out. One representative from school is enough. So if that's yourself who wants to fill that out, absolutely fine. Or if you want to make your senior mental health lead aware or contribute to it together, that's fine as well. So just a bit of an update regarding that as well. That's all from me, very short and sweet, but I'd love to see as many of you as possible at the Senior Mental Health Leads Network as well, which is Tuesday, the 2nd of July. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Zane. Thanks so much. Yeah, hopefully we'll see lots of folks there. It's a big old democracy session today because there's so many consultations and things for you to get your voices heard. That's good stuff. One final thing on behalf of the School Health Service to just mention. So we have mental health first aid training specifically for young people available as an offer to you. So we've partnered with Manchester Mind to bring you this offer, and it's exclusive for Manchester and Trafford schools. So only Manchester schools are likely to be on the call, but if you're in a trust or you've just got pals in Trafford schools, do let them know about this offer. It's a 2-day accredited training program and it's really good. We're really pleased with it. And it's for anybody who works with young people aged 8 to 18. So there's a really broad range of an offer there across key stages. So hopefully relevant to everyone on the call. It's usually £300. We've managed to get a discount, so it's £240, which for 2 full days of accredited training is very good value. That's the 3rd and 4th of July. So you could have a big mental health week, come to the network meeting, and then have 2 days full of training. And here's the best bit of the whole thing: we've got one free place we could award to any school who's willing to host the training. So if you're interested, but you're thinking, Sophie, the budget is just not there, but you've got some space that we could host the training in, then we can give you a free place on the training. So, you know, what an offer. This is a bit more of an in-depth look at what the training actually covers. So targeted specifically around young people, obviously, and gives a lot of like really practical insights into how you can support them and increase and improve your practice as it stands. So it's something to just really consider and think about if it's something that you can get approved through in school. It is really recommended that you have like a mental health first aider within school, and obviously to focus on young people specifically. I will send out this information along with everything that's been mentioned around Zane's offer and also the consultation. So you'll get a kind of wash up email along with these slides. So you don't need to sort of memorize all of that. But if you want a bit more information about it, then again, you can click the link on the slide to get that there and sort of follow up on that. But just to reiterate, we're looking for a place to host. So we are a very busy team, but we are not, and we're rich in lots of things, but we're not rich in space. We don't have a place to host events. So we often rely on colleagues in schools. And if that could be you, then that would be really, really helpful. And obviously you get a free place on the course as well. So it's kind of hopefully a win-win. If you've got questions about that, feel free to email me directly and I can get them to the right person. But does anyone have any questions about that at this particular moment, or about anything that we've covered so far in the first section, which is all about our Healthy Schools offer? Now's the time to pop it in the chat. Anything that you missed that you just want us to go back over quickly before we move on? I'll give you a moment to think. After that, we'll be going to our invited speakers. So Vicky, you'll be up next. I think you're out there. I've seen you on the call. Yeah, I thought so. Hi. I'll just wait to see if there's any questions. I don't think there will be. People tend to just be listening and taking it on in, but okay. Fab. Just bear with me 1 second, Vicky, because I've put the slides in the wrong order. So let me just put the correct one here so we can go to you. Oh no, there's only one. No, it's only I underestimated myself. I thought I'd put them all in the wrong order, but just that one there. All right, we are going to press swiftly on there because, as I said, we've got a jam-packed session today. So we're moving on to the part of the network meeting where we hear from the offer. I shouldn't say external, because obviously we're all part of the same team, but the offer beyond Healthy Schools core is how I describe it. So Vicky's very kindly agreed to come and speak with us today to talk about the oral health offer that there is to Manchester schools. Vicky, I don't think I'm sharing correctly for you to take control of the slide. So is it all right if you just tell me to click? Is that okay?
That'd be perfect. Thank you so much, Sophie.
No
That's
worries.
great. Thank you. First of all, I can say a huge thank you for the invitation to your Healthy Schools event. So we're very grateful to be invited. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Vicky. I manage the Oral Health Improvement Service. We're a Manchester citywide service. So we're an oral health improvement service, but we sit in community dental service. Sounds very complicated. It isn't, but it does sound it. Thanks, Sophie. Next slide, please. So what can the oral health service offer to schools to support them to improve the oral health of children and young people? So who are we and what are we about are probably the best thing to start off with. So thanks, Sophie. Next slide, please. So as I said, we sit within the community dental service, and we're commissioned by the City Council to work with families, children, young people and vulnerable adults to improve the opportunities for good oral health and general health. So one of our main objectives are to enable oral health improvement across the life course. So from 0 to 90 plus, by giving every child the best start in life. So we're very keen to get it right from day one or pre-birth even, and lay good foundations for good oral health throughout life. It contributes to the reduction of tooth decay in young children and young people by increasing exposure to fluorides and improving diet and feeding habits. So basically, some of the interventions we support schools to implement are very much around trying to improve the oral health of our school-age children. We do a lot of work preschool also, but with health visitors, midwives, etc. But it's about supporting health, education and social care partners to help create environments that improve oral health by adopting good practice. So whether that's safe weaning, good dietary practices, reduced sugar intake, etc. And it's also about increasing the number of our health, education and social care partners who know the oral health key messages and can promote them consistently to influence behaviour by providing training and resources. So that's just part of our offer. So to put it into how we provide interventions in schools. Thanks, Sophie. Next slide, please. So one of the big changes for EYFS is that oral health is now very much part of the framework, the curriculum, and that's been backed by the Faculty of Dental Surgery. We've long campaigned about the impact of poor oral health on children and called for the inclusion of oral health in the early years curriculum. And now, since September 2021, it's been added. So it's really good news for us, because I'm sure you know yourself, you'll probably have some children within your school who have bad teeth, who may join school already with bad teeth. And we've got high levels of tooth decay in Manchester. We've improved considerably over the last 8 years, but we're still not, we're still very much higher than the England average. So on average in Manchester, we've got 5-year-olds, we've got 32% of them experiencing tooth decay. And that was a school survey that was done in 2022. So we found that each child on average had 5 teeth affected. So 32% of our 5-year-olds have got tooth decay or have experienced tooth decay. And we really want to try and improve that as much as we possibly can. There's a strong evidence that children from our more deprived areas have a higher rate of tooth decay than our more affluent areas. So we're very much want to try and provide some interventions for some of our schools that maybe have heard a little bit about it, but maybe have not implemented it, and would maybe like to have some more advice about that. And that's one of the reasons that I'm here today. Thanks, Sophie. Next slide, please. So what impacts does poor oral health have on our children? It can have a big impact on school readiness. So we found some research that said in children in North West, hospital found that 26% had missed days from school because of dental pain and infection. We know that, and if you've seen it on the news today, Sir Keir Starmer and his supervised toothbrushing, it's something that we've been doing in Manchester for the last 15 years. That's why our oral health has improved so much. But what we want to prevent is those children who are more likely to be at risk and therefore more likely to have an impact on their school readiness. It also impacts on the parents, carers, having to have time off school or having sleepless nights, etc. Thanks, Sophie. Next slide, please. So one of the offers from Oral Health Service is to primary and SEND schools. And what we do is we offer a supervised toothbrushing programme. If you managed to see the BBC News last night, you'll have seen Sir Keir Starmer doing some toothbrushing in a school. It's not quite how we would do it. We wouldn't put a toothpaste straight onto a toothbrush from the tube. We do it very differently because of cross-infection control, but that's another story. So it's about allowing children to have extra toothbrushing during the day while they're in your care. This is based on research, so it's not taking the emphasis away from parents, carers, or whoever looks after them at home supervising toothbrushing. They still do it morning and last thing at night, but this is an extra time. And what we found is that research has shown that if children do this for the first 2 years of school life, then their teeth are more resistant to going bad and less likely to get holes in their teeth. So it's about, we do parent advice sessions, we provide all the resources and staff training to enable a supervised toothbrushing programme. Even if it's something that you wouldn't want, you're interested in having a little bit more about it, then please do contact us. There is no obligation to actually do this. If it's something that you wouldn't think would work in your environment, that's absolutely fine. But please do give us a call or drop us a line, and we can always just talk to you about it and see if it's something that might be workable in your school as well. Like I say, we provide everything free of charge. Thanks, Sophie. So this is a little bit more about it. So this is an evidence-based intervention that's shown that if children brush their teeth that extra time during the day, it's more likely to prevent tooth decay. So that's why we're doing it. Thanks, Sophie. Next slide, please. So this is just a photograph of one of our schools who actually implement the supervised toothbrushing. So it's very much around the children actually doing it themselves, but obviously being supervised by the staff to make sure that they get their own toothbrush with their name on. They pick up their paper towel with their little piece of toothpaste on, and then they go and they sit in a circle and they dry brush. So it's dry brushing. There's no water, there's no spitting, there's nothing like that. It's very much a regimented process, but it's a lot of our schools and EYFS settings already do this, as you can see. Thanks, Sophie. Next slide, please. The other thing that we offer is increasing dental access. I'm sure that you are very aware that NHS dentistry is a little bit in crisis, to say the least. We have a lot of children in Manchester who are currently not with a dentist. So we are offering what we call a buddy practice programme. And this is just a little photograph of one of our colleagues who's working in a school, just checking the teeth. And if with consent we do this, it's not without consent, it is with consent of the parent carer. And we just have a look at the teeth, we check them, we apply some fluoride varnish if there is no concerns or allergies against that. And then that child then will have access to that dentist that has come into school. The school visit is a one-off. They then become registered with that practice, and subsequent visits are at the practice. So the school doesn't become responsible for dental access. It's just an initial check in schools, and then they are treated or further checkups in the practice itself. Thanks, Sophie. Next slide, please. So we link a local dentist to a local school to see all those children starting school in nursery reception classes who don't have access to care. We coordinate everything. There is no emphasis on any of the staff to do anything other than provide us with the time, usually first thing in the morning, to see the children, and we have lists and everything, and it's very well coordinated. And like I say, we don't take too much of staff time to do this. Sessions are delivered in the school setting with follow-up visits to the practice, as I've mentioned, and that's available to primary schools in socially disadvantaged areas of Manchester. Yes, it is. The offer is open to children with complex SEND as well. Yes, absolutely. So what we're hoping to do is have oral health embedded into the health ethos of the school. So we provide training for all staff in delivering better oral health. That's basically just key oral health messages. One of the big issues for us is the frequency of sugar. So it's not necessarily how much, although we are concerned about that. It's how often that the children have it that decides whether their teeth go bad or not. So it's around healthy eating policies as well to include good oral health practice. And then we provide oral health lessons for key stage 1, 2, 3 and 4 pupils when it links into the curriculum, or if it's something that the school has targeted, they want to improve oral health for their school population, then we'll happily do it. In fact, this morning I was doing an assembly for Dixon's Brooklands School for years 7, 8 and 9 as part of their assembly. So that's just one example of some of the things we can offer as well. So even if you don't do our interventions, we can offer lessons and guidance, anything you want really, we're happy to support you with. Thanks, Sophie. Next slide, please. And this is really what I've just mentioned, is about reducing the amount of foods and drinks that contain what we call free sugars. So that's sugars that is added or processed into a product. So anything that is natural, like your milk, your water, your fruit and your vegetables, if they're not been through any process or they've not had anything added to them, then they are completely safe for teeth. So it's looking at how we can minimise the damage for our children. What can we do that's going to make a difference that will stop their teeth from going bad? And we don't expect them to never have any sugar, of course we don't. But what can we do to try and minimise the caries risk, the risk of their teeth going bad? And then finally, thank you, Sophie. It's just some key messages that's come from Public Health England. Reduce the consumption of foods and drinks that contain sugar. Brush teeth twice daily with a family fluoride toothpaste. Last thing at night and at least on one other occasion. And one of the key messages is to spit out, but don't rinse with water. Take the children or have the children registered with a dentist at least every 6 months on a regular basis. We talk about under 3s just having a tiny smear of toothpaste because they will swallow it and not be able to spit it out. And then 3 to 6 year olds, a pea-sized amount, spit out, but don't rinse. And then children ideally should be supervised to toothbrush until they're about 7 years of age, just so they're not using too much toothpaste and they don't have the dexterity to actually clean their teeth brilliantly. Although some do really do a good job as well. Thanks, Sophie. Has anybody got any questions? I think I've got just a couple of minutes for some questions. Is that okay, Sophie, if anybody's got any?
Of course. Absolutely, yeah, definitely. If anyone else have any questions, welcome to pop them in the chat. Yes, Jane, go for it. Feel free to turn your mic on so you can speak.
Hi, sorry to bang on about SEND. Are any of these dentists that we might be able to link up with specialists for kids with complex needs?
Yeah, so what children with complex needs have is straight referral to community dental service. So if we've got any children who haven't got access to a high street dentist, or the high street dentist isn't able to do any work for them, then they can be referred straight into our service.
We used to have a dentist that used to come into school and check all their teeth, but that seems to have just stopped. That's not how it start again, I'm assuming. We've got kids who are having all of their teeth removed, not a few, just the whole lot, because they've got really bad sensitivity around taste and things like that. We've tried the flavourless stuff and
the flavourless toothpaste.
So in terms of, I know I've got, I think, 2 coming in who haven't got dentists. So how do I go about getting them an appointment with a community one that'll just pop into school then?
So what we can do is we can do a referral. So you can do the referral by all means. What I can do, if it's helpful, is send you the referral form.
That'd be brilliant.
And it's just a case of completing the referral form, sending it into community dental service. They will triage your pupil, and then depending on their postcode, they will link them to that local practice.
Fabulous.
So the dentist from that local practice that will come into school.
Thank you very much.
So if the school's nearer,
I'll put my email in then.
Yes, please. If you put it in the chat, I can do that.
If you do that, and then I'll connect you both via an email, and also just for everybody, all of the speakers today, their information will be sent in an email after the session as well. And that goes obviously for those of you on the recording and you're watching and you'd like all the information, then just drop Healthy Schools to the general inbox and email and we'll come through to you. But Jane, we'll make sure you get that
That's
referral
great. Thanks very much.
Sorted. Thank you for asking the question.
You.
It's important. I'm sure others will have gained as well. That's great. Yes, Rob, over to you. Is it Rob? Sorry. Is that wrong?
Rick.
Rick, sorry, Rick. I don't know why I thought your name was Rob.
I was just going to ask for the same contact for the same reason.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll make sure that the information is sent across.
Okay,
if anybody does, it's just for our own reporting, if any connections do come from this where you actually end up using the service, if you have the time to let Healthy Schools know, that's really helpful, because we're never sure whether the PSHE network works, if that makes sense. So if things do come from it, Vicky, do let us know. Rick, do let us know. But that's all good stuff. Vicky, I know you need to get going. Rick, was there anything else, or was it just to get that information?
No.
That's great.
So, sorry, Rick, can I just ask which school you are? And then I can... Melland. Yeah, no problem. That's fine. What I'll do is I'll sort this out today and we'll get it set up.
Thanks.
That's great. And it might also just be, we might be able to support with thinking specifically about pupils with complex needs and how we can support coordinating that, maybe with Anna's support as well, because obviously there's a need there. So that's great. Good. There we go. Tick. We're doing the thing. Vicky, I know you've got to go, so we won't hold you any longer. You've got business to attend to, teeth need cleaning, etc. Thank you so much.
I've got an appointment at the dentist. Can you believe?
Do? I know. I loved it when you emailed me saying you had an appointment at the dentist. But anyway, you're just like us. Emma, you're
Absolutely.
on after the next person. We've got Eco Schools first, just so you know. But you're here now, which is great. Thanks so much again, Vicky. I'm hoping Angela is here and your camera is on, so we're all good and rolling on to go, which is great. Jane, you still get your hand up, but I think that might be a legacy hand. I'm going to lower it, but if you've got something to say, put your hand up again. I'm also just going to really quickly try stop sharing my screen and share it again so it's in PowerPoint Live, so that you don't have to hear people say, Sophie, click the screen 6,000 times. So bear with me 1 second. Yes. We like to see. Bear with me while we zoom through. But then you will be able to take control and things like that, which is much better for everybody. So here we go, a bit of retrieval for everyone, a reminder of what we've done so far. As I'm doing that, I can just introduce Angela. So Angela is here from Manchester City Council and is an Eco Schools lead, here to talk to you about the offer they have for your school, which is very exciting. It's going very slowly.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Sophie, so much again for having me here today. And there's a couple of people that I do recognise on the call, so you'll already be experts on Eco Schools, but for everybody else, hopefully we can just give a few updates. I've also got some updates from my colleague Rob Potter, who can't be here today as well, so I'll share those.
My fault, sorry. They're in the wrong order.
Okay.
It's coming, 1 second.
And so just to let everybody know, I am quite new to post. So Manchester City Council have been supporting the Eco Schools for quite a while, but I am new to the post. So we now have a designated full-time person, which is myself. Been in post since March. So there's a lot more kind of support and work we'd like to do with schools. So if you have been involved before or want to find out more, then hopefully you'll find this interesting.
Sorry about that, Angela. Thanks for bearing with me. Are you able to take control? Would you like me to click?
I think I can do
There we
it.
go.
If that's okay.
Great. There we
Well.
go. Fab.
Okay, fantastic. So, so Eco Schools is part of the Keep Britain Tidy partnership. And Manchester City Council have a partnership with them called Keep Manchester Tidy, for those that don't know, and that's the team that I sit in. So what is Eco Schools? Just to double check, everyone can see that flag and the Eco Schools. Is that correct?
I can't. I think it's still on.
Correct.
I
I might just
like...
need you to
there you go.
Yeah, perfect. So what is Eco Schools? So Eco Schools has been around since 1994, so celebrating their 30th year this year. It's a programme designed for schools, with schools, and it's a 7-step framework, and it's an environmental accreditation and environmental education programme. What I will say is I am using the term Eco Schools because that's the branding, but this is also suitable for early years provisions, SND, alternative curriculum, and colleges, as well as primary schools and high schools. So just to set that out there as a caveat. So it's youth-led, it's all pupil-led, and it just really gives the ownership for the young people to take control of themselves and look at healthy places where they want to grow up, healthy school environments, and gives them that green lens on learning. So the 7-step framework that surrounds Eco Schools is that the young people form an eco committee. Now, this can be done in several ways and is done differently across Manchester in different schools. It can form part of your already existing maybe schools board. Some schools do it really successfully where they pick young people they think would particularly benefit from this programme for a number of different reasons. Maybe it's to like develop their confidence, maybe it's to encourage participation and attendance in school. And for lots of different reasons. Maybe it's young people that have a little bit of eco-anxiety, support their mental health and well-being. However your school decides to do it, that's totally up to you. But we ask that you form a committee and then you complete an Eco Schools environmental review. The environmental review just gives you an idea of where your school is, what things you're doing really, really well, and what things the young people might like to take forward and develop within their school setting. The young people decide on an action plan, and they put that into practice. So it's developing their thinking, their skills, how they will inform and involve others through assemblies, whether that's including parents in that, PTA groups, lots and lots of different ways that they can do that. It's linked with the curriculum, so it supports healthy living, PSHE. It also supports British values. It supports global citizenship. It supports lots and lots of different areas and can tie into links across the curriculum. The young people monitor and evaluate their projects, and then they create their own eco code. And the eco code can tie in any area of your schoolwork. How you do it is completely down to you as a school. You can have a big project or a small project, whatever works for you. You just next slide, please. Thank you so much. So the Eco Schools timetable is from an academic year. So this just gives you an idea of if you want to look at using Eco Schools in September, you would start in the autumn term by developing your eco committee and your environmental review, and then working right through to the summer term when you can put an application in if you would like to. There's lots and lots of support from the Eco Schools website along the way. There's training for staff, and there's also best practice sharing meetings to keep you on track, to kind of share best practice and ideas, see what other schools are doing. So lots and lots of support, session sort of plan outlines and time and resources are all on the website as well, so you're not having to come up with lots of new things. It fits really nicely within the schools. Next slide, please. Thank you. So topic ideas. So there are 10 topic ideas that you can choose from within your school. And again, this is totally dependent on your school. It's flexible. But some of the things that stuck out to me here, because this is obviously healthy living, and Healthy Schools Network today was the healthy living in particular topic area we've got there. Lots of things around plant-based eating, sensory gardens, being outdoors. You know, we know that it promotes building healthy bodies, physical development of fine motor skills, mental health and well-being from being outside for young people. Links to healthy eating, developing confidence, reduction in eco-anxiety. So lots and lots of really positive, healthy ways that eco schools can be embedded within your environment. If you want to just skip on there, and it just gives you the 10 topic idea, the 10 topic ideas here. Just to look at healthy school grounds as well, which I think is a really good one. So I've just skipped back again there for me, Sophie. Sorry, is obviously Manchester City Council, and we're really passionate about building healthy environments that young people can grow up. So looking at school grounds, we can link you with our neighbourhood officers as well over at Manchester City Council, who can come and help and support. Quite a lot of our schools are looking at how they can green their school environments, because quite a lot of playgrounds can be quite urban, and there's also some links with the neighbourhood investment fund opportunities and a BIFA community fund that we can help to support you to apply for if you would like to take some of these topics on. So if you just skip through to the end there, I've got lots and lots of information, and I could talk all day about eco schools, but I'm aware that it's been around for a while. Some people might be interested, and some people it's not suitable for their school. It's absolutely fine. What I will say is that eco schools is all free to access. However, when you apply for the accreditation, there is a cost to that, and that's £200 per academic year. And part of my role is to make sure that that barrier is not there. So if schools would like to be involved, please don't be put off by that. Part of my role is getting sponsorship from local organisations, social value, and supporting schools by taking away that barrier. So if you would like to find out more, all my contact details are on the screen, and I know Sophie can share this with everybody after. So please get in contact. And if we could just go on to the next one, I think this is Rob's slides. Is that right? Oh, skip through that one, Sophie, sorry. I feel like there's
yeah, there was a few left there, but yeah, anyway.
I couldn't see that on my screen, so apologies.
What was the last one that you wanted? Sorry.
So there's just something that Rob had sent through around the Green Schools Network. Or I'll answer any questions on eco schools first, and then I'll move on to Rob's update. Has anyone got any questions?
I think people might get in touch about them if they do, but that's really useful to know, and particularly useful to know about that, the removal of that financial barrier. That's great. Does anyone have, or is anyone engaged with eco schools at this point that would like to say anything? That's absolutely great as well.
Is Natalie still on the phone? Natalie Wilding. She's her school.
Hiya. Hiya, I was just typing. I was just going to say, I highly recommend Angela and Eco Schools. Yeah, I'm working with, we've done Eco Schools for a couple of years, and then obviously started working with Angela since she came on, and massive help already. Loads more of it. Like, we've already done Eco Schools for a couple of years, but there's a lot more Manchester knowledge that Angela's bringing to it, which has been great. So I appreciate you, and I really recommend you.
Thanks, Natalie. I think, would you say it builds really strong, confident, healthy young people? They're really passionate about it, aren't they?
Oh, 100%. Like, literally, it's one of my favourite things in my PSHE role. Like, they've really engaged, and definitely recommend it.
Thank you. You can't really say better than that. Yeah.
I'll pay you later, Natalie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, I'll take that.
I didn't know you'd have a plant on the screen, Angela. That's an unintentional pun. I'm not sure what's happened with Rob's slides. I'm sorry about that. But is it right if I send them across to people? Is there a different There's the
so
Green Flag Award, is that right?
No, so with Rob's, basically, it's just to give everybody an update. If people are not aware, Rob is our climate change in education lead. He can't be with us today on the call. So he's just asked me to remind people that there is a Green Schools network. It's an idea sharing and problem solving network for schools and colleges focused on climate action. So you don't have to be involved in eco schools to be involved in the Green Schools network. If anybody would like to be involved, please do get in contact with us. Department for Education has released some guidance around schools needing climate action plans and sustainability leads as of 2025. So it's just to be aware that if people want some support with that, please do get involved in the Green Schools Network, and Rob has got a lot more information. And just a really, really good opportunity starting and launching in September 2024. Rob's been working with Manchester University, and there is a school climate assemblies approach that's happening, where the idea is to assemble lots of young people from primary education schools, submit ideas for climate action, support and help the young people to develop into project proposals. And then some of the schools will be given funding. So the top 18 schools will be given some funding, and basically they'll be able to put their projects into action and look at supporting green lens education, climate change within schools. So I'm sure that Rob will be able to provide further information, and we'll make sure that that's linked. So if anybody's interested, that's also available through Manchester City Council.
That's great. Thank you, Angela. And we'll make sure, again, all of that is sent out to everybody, and we'll also we'll let people know nearer the time as well, because that sounds like an amazing opportunity, and I'm sure there'll be lots of folks who bite your hand off. So that's absolutely fantastic. We'll share all your contact information in your slides as well. And again, if anyone does get in touch with Angela through this network, then do drop me a line so that we know that this works, and we can keep bringing you people that are useful to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
No problem. Thanks, Angela. I really appreciate it. Okay, great. Look at that. 2 o'clock. We're on time. I'd like to welcome our very own Emma Pilling to the call. Emma has taken control. Great. No more hearing me click away. Emma, I'll hand over to you. You are muted, just FYI.
I got 5 years in and I'm still making that error. So embarrassing.
Absolutely fine.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm just here today to make you aware of our Safe Citizen programme that launched yesterday. So it has been developed to improve emotional and social competencies and personal social emotional skills in primary age children. So we are targeting it at year 5 and 6. However, as agreed with the Safeguarding Hub, we are allowed to use it as an intervention tool for younger children if they are at risk or have been involved in the things that you can see on your screen. So the programme aims to support schools to provide effective intervention to prevent risk-taking behaviours and becoming victims of criminal exploitation. So today I am just going to take you through, oh, it doesn't let me go, there we go. The resources, so the rationale first of all as to why we have created and developed this programme, and we're going to explore the lessons and resources and just kind of give a brief overview of them. An introductory session has been recorded to help you develop your confidence in order to deliver these effectively and safely, as the content does need to obviously be delivered with a little bit of kind of understanding and awareness of how to cover these topics whilst keeping children, young people within your schools safe. So just the programme rationale to start with.
Just check, is that moving for everyone? Have I made a mistake in some way?
I can just see the pilot launch screen.
Yeah,
still.
just try.
Oh,
do
is
you
it not
have an option
moving?
to take control again? Sorry, I don't know.
I can't see the screen. Sorry, I was just typing that. I don't know if it's me, but I can now.
There you go.
Thanks.
Yeah, great.
Sorry.
Thanks, everybody.
Sorry, everyone. One
Sorry,
minute.
Emma.
Flick
No, I
through
think
to the slides. Okay, so this will just be the structure for today. So first of all, just giving you the rationale for why we have developed the programme, and then I'll be going through the lessons and resources with you. So first of all, just having a look at the rationale. So just to provide you with some research behind the development of these lessons, providing you with the current picture of criminal activity, exploitation, serious youth crime violence across Manchester. So I won't go into all the details, you can see them here on screen, but it just kind of gives the reason and that puts it into context as to why within some of our schools we may need to be delivering such content. So the picture of serious organised crime in Greater Manchester is always changing. As organised crime groups and individuals are better understood and tackled, new threats emerge and new ways of working emerge as well. The following facts and figures does relate to just a little snapshot of the serious and organised crime picture in Greater Manchester and just kind of illustrate the nature within our city region. There are 176 active organised crime groups in Greater Manchester, 31% of non-organised crime groups in Manchester. There are 55 of those impacting the city of Manchester, so they're directly kind of networking across communities that obviously our schools are linked to. Just kind of coming away from the data, if we look at kind of what's going on within our Manchester schools, there has been a rise in criminal exploitation, county lines activity, and most recently incidents of knife crime across the city. However, it must be noted that between 22 to 23, data did show a decrease in knife crime across Greater Manchester as a whole. So further research just to kind of bring to your attention as well, and further paper that you might want to kind of gain insight to if you do wish to obviously use this within your context. It kind of just shows key issues for vulnerable young pupils and kind of make you decide whether this would be relevant for your children. So do you have these vulnerabilities within your schools and within your communities? So key issues for vulnerable younger pupils that are more likely to be involved with gang-related behaviour. So these include children actually as young as 10 within our schools that are recently been mixing with older children and older people in gang-related behaviour. So being groomed to join gangs and being given incentives such as trainers in order to carry weapons or drug running across the country. So it is happening, and it is happening within our schools and most concerningly within our primary schools. So this is why this programme has been brought out, one as a preventative measure and two as an educational awareness measure as well. So it is imperative that we do educate and raise awareness to equip pupils with the skills that they need to make safe and healthy choices and provide that safe place to explore risk and consequences. So what is the purpose of this programme? So I have developed the programme based on a social and emotional skills basis. So in response to obviously this data, we've developed this education programme to equip our children with the knowledge and skills that they need to identify coercive and exploitative behaviours from others, resist peer pressure, be assertive and resilient, and to make safe and healthy choices. So teaching about gangs, gang-related behaviour and antisocial behaviour does involve looking at a range of complex issues. So it is for that reason that these lessons have been set out within the context of keeping safe out and about. So the lessons deal with the issues around identifying risk and exploring ways of resisting peer pressure and recognising when and how to get help. So the tasks and activities focus on these three vital areas of skill development. So they do not focus on teaching explicitly about knife crime, about criminal exploitation, about county lines. They are brought in as scenarios. The main focus of this session is to equip the children and young people with these skills to obviously make safe choices and get help if they need to, if they do ever face these situations. So obviously the overarching aim of this programme is to develop that resilience. So the programme provides short, engaging sessions to support the development of these necessary skills, to provide that knowledge and understanding of the world around them and equips the young people with the tools needed to live that more productive and fulfilling life. So the programme will include 2 sessions also that do explore self-esteem and emotional regulation to support with the development of these attributes. So reflection point for you. So just whilst I'm continuing to talk, I would ask you at this point just to reflect on your school communities, reflect on your vulnerabilities, reflect on any safeguarding incidents and reflect on your PSHE curriculum. Is this something that is needed within your school? So let's now take a look at the lesson content. So I just want to highlight a few key features of the lesson. So there are lots of slides here that I'm just going to kind of click through, and it is something for you to kind of go back, you know, and refer to see if this is something that you would require support with. So to start, each session does have a vocabulary pre-teach section. So this is key for language development and that increased understanding, and crucial in that process of skills development. So we can't expect children to be able to make choices and understand consequences if they don't understand what a choice is, if they don't understand what a consequence is. We can't expect children to understand, to develop the skills to resist peer pressure and to identify pressurising situations, again, if they don't understand and know what they are. So each session, just as shown here, so this is something taken from the slides, will involve a 10 to 15 minute vocabulary teach. So it could be actually that you spend the whole session on this. So one thing to point out is that I won't be putting any time limits on any of the lessons or the lesson plans, and actually just go with the flow of where your lesson takes you. It all depends on how streetwise your children are, how aware of things they are, and actually it might be that we have to stay in certain parts of that lesson. So obviously we focus on first is that education, that awareness of the vocabulary and that language development, and then we apply that vocabulary to check the understanding before we progress on to the session. Just to give you another example here, so one very simple, exploring today's keywords of choices and consequences. So very, you know, take it really back to basics of just making a simple choice and the children understanding what a choice is before then looking at the understanding of consequences. We then ask the children to apply those skills in that very first part of the session. So we'll then apply the knowledge of choices and consequences to then just everyday situations in everyday life. We then look at the process of risk taking and that there are positive and negative risks, and this hopes to then start to develop that crucial critical thinking of the children. So this is one of the pinnacle things that we're trying to develop, is that critical thinking. And then we move on to more appropriate and more relevant with obviously the aims of the programme. So then we start to bring in some of these situations. So not all the time, so we do continue to keep it quite light-hearted, but we will just drop in a few scenarios that does relate to obviously the aims of the programme. We do then talk about more complex and sensitive topics, but take that same approach. So criminal exploitation is covered within the lessons. However, throughout the lesson plans, I do provide that warning, that guidance. And if you do not feel comfortable, you don't feel like you want to deliver this, you can take certain scenarios out and you can just keep those basic skills. However, some of our schools and some of our provisions will need this level of lesson and lesson delivery within this topic. So they will need to make something that they are aware of within their schools or their children are particularly vulnerable to. So then we look at the overall definition of criminal exploitation, and then we look specifically at online exploitation as well. So just giving examples, and then we move on to scenarios and situations where children can apply the skills and to understand these terms and topics more. So just having a look at the lessons. So we use a range of distancing methods. As you know, this is part of effective PSHE practice. It's safer and more effective to help pupils to think about someone other than themselves, but someone who is like them, a similar young person, and with relevance with their culture and their age. So just to give you an example here of a social story that we do use. So this is a task in relation to identifying risks or choices and consequences and managing influence. So this looks at the whole peer pressure and then builds on into criminal exploitation. Pupils go through the storyboard and then they're asked to identify those risky behaviours. So that's just an example of a case study or a storyboard and how they are used. And this is an example of the criminal exploitation. So in the sessions, you will see text highlighted in yellow. And the reason that is because although we have SEND children and children that may have those social learning communication needs, if we were to provide just simply pictures, we all know that children with social learning communication issues make associations to remember. It's a natural way of that their brain adapts to remember this information. So if we was to mention exploitation, and all we could see was Xbox, McDonald's, presents, phone, money, the association that those children may make that actually if I'm asked to do this, then I get all these lovely things, and that's not what we're going for. So that's the reason things are highlighted in yellow. So you take the text and you can support via guided reading, peer support, peer reading, and so on. So activities are focused on skills development, kind of just to finish here. And those key skills, as I've mentioned, really is that critical thinking, that problem solving, the emotional regulation aspect and the self-regulation, and resisting that peer pressure. So we do, throughout some of the sessions, introduce, educate, raise awareness of consequences through tasks that do encourage that critical thinking and those skills of problem solving, making healthy, safe choices, and decision making as well. And like I said, we do incorporate those those topics into it that we're trying to obviously address, such as knife crime, through the actual consequences when we're looking at these stories and storyboards. And like I said, it is optional. And as I mentioned, we do explore emotional regulation and mental health, as well as the research does suggest that children with mental health issues are more likely to have that low self-esteem and are more likely to be groomed into criminal exploitation, because they are most likely want to seek that belonging, feelings of love, safety and status. So we do in fact incorporate sessions on regulation and mental health and looking after well-being into the session, and in particular controlling aggression and impulsive behaviours. So again, this is something that you can explore a little bit more through the slides. As I said, I've packed a lot in here. However, you can take a look at the resources and see if this is something that you feel would be valuable for your school. Children do get an activity book that they can then take away. And like I said, it'll have all these skills that they can then refer to and all the agency support, you know, ways of getting help. And again, that's something that we do at the end of every lesson. We do have a signposting page, and it's important that you edit that to suit obviously the support that you would have on offer inside and outside of your school. So just to finish last minute, this is what you get. So it's all free support if you have completed your health check, a recording of the session, the PowerPoints with guidance notes, full lesson plans, and the activity packs as well. So I know there was a lot to pack in there. So if you do have any questions, please do email me, and I will be releasing these resources at the end of the week. So please just register by giving me an email. And that's it from me. 1414. There you go, Sophie.
Bang on. Thank you so much. Thanks,
No worries.
Emma. That's a really brilliant programme, and it's exciting to get that launched, and also ties in nicely with what we're about to talk about. So thanks everybody. As I said, the RSHE consultation element of what we're talking about is going to start at 2:15, which is now. So this may well be what some of you came to listen to and to do, in which case, hi, welcome. I hope that you've got a lot out of the rest of the speakers as well. But we are moving on to this now. Because it's really important, and because it's good, it's important that we all kind of have a good understanding of where we're at. So first things first, we are all online right now here today, so it will be easier, I think, to follow the next parts of the presentation if you have these 3 documents open on a screen next to you. You don't have to, but I think slides aren't linked anymore. No, it might be me, possibly. Is it moving with me, everybody?
Yes, I can see that. For me, I can click these links, but I will put those into the chat in a second as well.
It might be, Natalie, that you've clicked ahead and you need to rejoin to the present, like to rejoin presenter. There's a way of doing that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, sorry, I clicked that. I can't see it. It's back on like slide 35 for me.
There is a way. I've forgotten how to do it, but there's a way of going like back to presenter.
You might be able to see a little icon that is telling you to go back to presenter.
Yeah, I clicked back to presenter, and back to presenter says slide 35. Sorry.
Okay, it might be useful to just pop out and pop back in the chat.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, thanks for saying it's important. So yeah, you, as I say, you don't have to open all these links, but and I will. I've quoted some chunks of the guidance for us to have a look at. But nonetheless, I think it's useful just to have them. As I say, all of this will also get sent out to you. Some of these links are easier to find than others. So if you haven't looked at some of these things before, then that makes total sense. Just by a sort of how should we do it? By a reaction, maybe, and this isn't by no means an indication of your stance on the guidance, but just by a thumbs up reaction, who or any of the reactions, I suppose, who's had a chance to read the guidance so far? Has anyone had a look at it? Because I do know that some people haven't, which is completely valid. I'm just interested in like what kind of participation in it we've had so far. I'm assuming some. So yeah, feel free to use the reaction buttons to tell me if you've had a look at it, or pop in the chat if you've had a look at it. Just we've had some thumbs up knocking around. Yeah, a lot of people have. Okay, cool. Great. Okay, brilliant. Well, that will be helpful a little bit, but I will still just go through what we're working with here. So that's the review that we have here. And the image that's on the screen is the consultation document. And the reason that I've put that image there is because I think that's the most important thing to take out of today. Is I really highly encourage everyone to not just read the guidance, but to read the consultation document. You would assume maybe that the consultation document follows very closely to the structure of the guidance, but there is actually quite a lot of content within that as well. And the consultation itself it takes a little bit of work to find out how to respond. So it's worth just having a look at that as well. But let's get into it. So what's happening? So this review of the RSHE guidance was expected. It was part of the 2017 legislation and baked into the 2019-2020 guidance. So the guidance we've all been using, we were expecting this to happen. This isn't a surprise to anyone. In the broader scheme of things, the timing specifically was a surprise. It wasn't something that we knew about in advance of you guys, and it wasn't something that charities and organisations like the PSHE Association knew about in advance. So that sort of like we knew and we didn't. In fact, we'd been expecting it since December, and there'd been a multitude of delays. The guidance was first published in draft form in May 16th, 2024, and the consultation period is now open. So we have this time available to respond to the guidance that has been published, and that closes on the 11th of July. So this may be information you knew already. If not, this is where we're at. One of the first and most important questions to cover in this sort of mini briefing is whether the election impacts the guidance, and the answer is both no and we don't know. So no, in so much as the DfE have made very clear they're continuing with the consultation. They didn't have to, but they didn't have to not, if that makes sense. And they've decided to continue with it, which means that it's still open and running. For those of you keeping score and paying attention, the election is soon on July the 5th, before the end of the consultation. Obviously, none of us know the outcome of that election, but governments of all shapes and forms tend to change things as they come in. So it might be fair to assume that this guidance will change based off of the new elected officials. However, we can't know that. And regardless, I think we've got a really good case for actually completing the consultation, because whether or not things are going to change, the information we provide can shape that change. So even if we have completely new government come in and they say we want to change things, they might use the responses from the consultation to make that change. So if there's one thing you take out of this next little bit of time, is please do respond to the consultation meaningfully and thoughtfully yourself, and also support others to do so. What we absolutely can't do is just ignore this guidance on the basis of the election. I understand that some people may wish to do that, and of course you can, that is your prerogative, but it isn't our advice to do that, and it's not the PSHE Association's advice to do that either. So what are we advising? So we've got three kind of key messages really for all of you, and a lot of you will have heard me say this already because we've emailed and discussed things, but I just wanted to reiterate it here and on the recording. So the first thing is that we change no existing provision. Whatever you are doing in RSHE at the moment in school, and however it is you are meeting the 2019 to 2020 guidance, you need to continue to do that, as that guidance remains statutory. Any changes made at the moment to match with the draft guidance are ill-advised at best. And there's a few reasons for saying they're ill-advised. Firstly, they're not statutory and the existing guidance is. That would bring you out of statutory compliance with what you're expected to do within your RSHE. Secondly, we don't know how these changes will be put into practice or if they will stay as they are. So it could be a big waste of your time. And I don't know about you, but my sense of people in school is they don't have time to waste. And thirdly, you will have a year. The DfE have been very clear on that. You will have a year to implement anything that does change. We are likely to see changes because it's expected that this gets reviewed as it should be. Things change in the world of RSHE. But you have a year to do that, as you did with the other changes in guidance, etc. Doing something now that's rushed is really not going to be best practice. If you're getting any pressure from anyone in school or worries or conversations about a need to do change based on the draft guidance, please do come to us and we can back up that position. But you've had it from us and the PSHE Association. There's absolutely no recommendation to change practice at this point in time. I won't say that again because I feel like I made that point, but it's important because I understand why people would want to be at the forefront of what the guidance is, but it's a draft and it's under consultation and we have an election and we have a year and it's June. There's lots of reasons to stay as you are. The second thing, though, is to respond to the consultation. I'm going to talk to you about what that looks like. I will be honest with you, I don't think it's a particularly user-friendly document. I don't think it's necessarily written in a way which we would support. If someone produced this as a document for you to respond to, you might have reason to say this could be done more easily. But I have tried to make some resources to help with that. Nonetheless, please do dedicate some time to responding to it. Your voice is really important, but so are the voices of your entire school community. So do respond as an individual. You can also respond on behalf of your school, and you can do that separately. You can actually respond under every hat that you wear. So if you're a parent and a governor and a teacher, and you also want to respond on behalf of your school, you could do that, as long as each of those responses are different with different perspectives. Please do support and encourage your colleagues to respond. So we on this call are big PSHE nerds. I feel confident saying that. Not everybody is, and that's fine. But actually this guidance is very far reaching and goes deeply beyond the realms of RSHE. The H is doing a lot of heavy lifting, actually, the health area. And so it will impact your colleagues' work, and it will also impact the young people in your school who they care about. So do encourage them to respond as well, help them to do that. Obviously, they can respond under their own steam with what they want to say. You don't need to give them like exact wording, but do encourage them to do so. Particularly if they teach PSHE, because they will have to be in compliance with whatever the guidance becomes. Please encourage and support pupils to respond. Youth voice is integral to PSHE. All evidence suggests that the best PSHE and RSHE responds to and is in dialogue with pupil voice. The PSHE Association have said that one of their critiques of the guidance is that there is not enough pupil voice within it, and you could say that it's been written for parents and not for pupils. That's a quote from them. But that doesn't mean that people shouldn't respond. They will need help and support to do that, because again, it's not been written in a way where that's easy to do. But it is something that students should be encouraged to do and to help to do. I will be creating some resources next week that will give you some pointers as to how to do good youth participation on this guidance. Everything's happening at 100 miles an hour because we haven't had a huge lead into this. So do feel free to wait for that, but also do get cracking and talking to your school councils. How can they respond to this? What do they want? One thing that you could do is use existing pupil voice you have and quote that within the consultation yourself. So rather than taking it to them, you know what they want from RSHE. Is that reflected in the guidance, yes or no? Finally, do support and encourage parents to respond. There's a lot of discussion with parents within this guidance, and it would be very interesting to find out if your parents consider themselves to be well represented. Please don't be nervous about taking the guidance to parents. They have the right to respond. It's an open democratic process and they should be encouraged to. And again, if you need support with that, then we're happy to help you if we can. Number 3, having said change nothing, do plan and prepare for some change, right? So some change is coming down the line. We know this. Was always going to happen. It was planned and scheduled. Consider your CPD allocated time for September through to next July, and think about where you can allocate time for updating and changing anything that you might want to change or update on within RSHE. You're not going to know what that is yet, but you do need to think about whether there's time to do that, if that makes sense. I know that feels like the wrong way around of doing things. You need to know what you're going to do before you do it, but scheduling out that time is sensible for your own workloads and so that you're able to actually respond to whatever happens. Just also, if you wanted to, you could read the guidance through and consider preparation for changes that you hope to see maintained. So there is some really good stuff in this guidance. It's by no means like something that we would wholeheartedly just disagree with. And when you see those positive changes, you might think, okay, I'd actually like to consider how we would approach that. So for example, for secondary school, there's quite a big emphasis on uterine health with discussion of things like polycystic ovary syndrome and endometriosis. This is going to stretch some of the knowledge of some practitioners in secondary who might not know about those conditions and will be expected to teach them. So potentially consider if there's areas of the curriculum that if they came in, you would need support with teaching, and start doing a bit of research on that. I know Kat's going to be busy over the summer producing some resource on that, but we don't have to do it all for you. There's some things that you could think about. So that might be something you want to do. Hopefully this is a short summary there of the things you can do, but let's have a think again about what actually the guidance is and how we can support a little bit. Can folks just try clicking the consultation spreadsheet? Does that open for people? If not, I'll send it to you. Oh, sorry. It should also, it's on our shared drive, but I will also email it over. I didn't want to send it before I'd talked through it to everybody because it looks a lot scarier than it is, but I will explain it and I'll share my screen as well. I'll explain what that is.
Healthy Schools can see it, but I think anyone that is not NHS will not be able to open it.
I'm going to share it with you and I'll send it over. As I say, I didn't want to send it before because it looks a bit intense, but it will be useful. So I'll just show that to you now so you can see what I'm talking about, and then we'll crack on. So I've made a consultation response document that looks like this, and I've made that in order to support you to create your consultation response, basically, because it is quite complex. There's a lot of different elements, and it's not as simple as reading through the guidance and saying, I agree with this, I don't agree with this. There's a lot of content within the consultation document itself. So this is just a matrix that you can use. It doesn't have answers filled in because we can't give you answers because it has to be your view and your position, but it's just like a tool that you can use. So I will send that out to you. Right, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so this is what the consultation structure looks like. So these are the areas that you'll be able to respond to. So there's different questions on each section, and you can see this on here as well. So you go through, and it's not the same as each of the sections in the guidance, as I said. And an example of a question, so here's the question, openness with parents. And so there's quite a bit of blurb at the beginning. So again, you're going to need to read through that. So parents are the first teachers of their children. It's vital they know what their children are being taught and are reassured that the resources used are factual and appropriate. So we haven't got to a question, just some statements. And then there's a whole bunch of this statement here, basically, and you kind of carry on through that. And then you get to, do you agree with our proposed approach to increase transparency on RSHE material? And the answers are just yes or no. So there's no, it's not a Likert scale. So you need to think, like, if you're considering how those will be amalgamated, do you want to be in the general yes or the general no? A lot of people will have kind of a balanced opinion on that kind of thing because these are contentious issues. So you're going to have to work out which one you think the most. And then every single one has a comment of up to 250 words. And so again, I'd recommend if you're supporting colleagues with responding that you write those answers out in advance because it's not something you can save as you go through. So you'll need to have that prepared. Okay, so that's just an overview on the consultation. I know it's not the most interesting part of it, but I think that is actually the space where we're able to make some impact and change. So I just wanted to spend a bit of time on that. Let's get into the guidance proper, unless anyone has any consultation-based questions they want to pop in the chat at this point. As I say, I'll send that spreadsheet out as well. Okay, lovely. So some sort of overarching points around the guidance, and some points sort of criticism and things to think about. There's some quite key changes within the guidance, particularly around age restrictions. Okay, so for the first time, we think, we're not 100% sure, but we think in English educational history, there's age restrictions on certain topics that you can teach at different times. That's not to say that previously within RSHE, we've all been teaching things at any random time, but we've been using our professional judgment, our expertise, our understanding of our young people and the spiral curriculum to work out when is best to teach things to them. This guidance brings in clear age restrictions. If you're a primary school teacher, I'd encourage you to look to where the age restrictions are in year 7, because that's how you'll work out what you can and can't teach in year 6 if this becomes statutory and lower. There's no evidence base for using age restrictions. So no sort of robust research proposal has ever suggested this. It's not what the World Health Organization suggests. It's not what leading charities in the UK suggest. It's not all Wales, Northern Ireland or Scotland do. So it would be reasonable to say that we are at best out on a limb by having age restrictions, and at worst not doing something that's supported by evidence, and the guidance itself doesn't support evidence for that. There's a really limited time frame of the consultation, so it's 8 weeks within exam time. You can include that in your response by saying that it wasn't facilitated well, so it hasn't been able to capture people's responses well, if that's what you think. If you think it's been done well, you could put that in. If you remember the 2019 guidance, there was a huge number of roundtables, there was consensus building, there was discussion with the medical community, with teachers' unions, there was discussion with charities and leading organisations and people who were doing the work, and crucially, young people themselves. This hasn't happened. We've had 5 people who are the selected group expert panel, and that's been the main input. There is no discussion of pedagogy within the guidance or really of assessment. There's very little on training, which I would argue are the 3 biggest parts of RSHE. Pedagogy, assessment and training is what everyone talks about all the time. Very little on any of that. There's no discussion of the role of local authorities. We are quite unique in the size of our team at Healthy Schools, but we're not unique in our position. It's well established that local authorities have a role to play in the support of RSHE. They're not mentioned. It doesn't mention at all the recent Ofsted report on personal development, which seems odd because that is an evidence base for what's happening in school and what needs to improve. And the recommendations from the expert panel have not been published. So they have consulted an expert panel, but we don't know what they said. So we don't actually know if they've been taken on. So the evidence base alone is also not there. And there's no youth engagement or pupil voice, and also ignores the youth engagement and pupil voice from the Sex Education Forum that's come out this year. So those are some overwhelming initial thoughts that we might want to consider in our response. I will get into sort of the broader depth of some of the issues that we at Healthy Schools are concerned about, but I do just want to raise that there are some really good things in this guidance, and that should be mentioned because there are things that we would want to keep and maintain. So there is a huge addition to personal safety around unintentional injury prevention and health literacy. Pharmacists are specifically mentioned as being important, and there's a lot of focus on skills around how to access healthcare and how to keep ourselves safe and have good understanding of things like the water safety code and first aid. These things are being brought in as mandatory and statutory. This will obviously require some skill within schools to teach, but we would be here to support you to do that. But that we think that's a positive thing. Introduction of a discussion on deep fakes and AI. This is also deeply concerning. Deep fakes are out there in the world, and young people need to know about them. If you don't know about them, Google with caution, but they are quite bleak. So it's important that they're in the curriculum. There's a robust discussion of suicide prevention. I wouldn't argue that it's done exactly the best way that we'd recommend it, but it is good that it's there. There's a huge section now on developing bodies, as I said, talking about uterine care and uterine health. Things like PCOS and endometriosis are mentioned specifically to be taught by the end of year 11. That's good news, we think. Like, those are important conditions to be discussed. There is a big focus on being safe with a focus on harassment. I would say this is a middling positive, because whilst its content and inclusion is important, there is quite a strong focus on individuals, particularly girls, keeping themselves safe from harassment, rather than the way that we would want best practice approaches to approach it with people not harassing girls. There's quite a focus on them doing that and keeping themselves safe. the title's called Being Safe. But it's good that it's in there. A lot of schools are teaching on that, but it's not necessarily core. I'm just going to pause for a second there. I will move on to our concerns. Has anyone got any questions at this point? Anything that you're burning to say? I can pause the recording if that's helpful, but anything you wanted to talk about? Is everyone with me? Everyone out there? Great.
We're still here, Sophie.
Lovely. Okay, fab. And breathe. So, some of the concerns I've sort of mentioned, but I think we need to go into them in more detail. What I haven't done is written a list of how to respond to the questions that you've been provided with. 2 reasons for that, or 3 actually. 1, it's a consultation on what is best practice in your school, and you are in your school. You are experts in your area, and you know if you could put this into practice or not. So I can't do that, and we can't do that. It would be wrong to do that. But secondly, copy and pasted responses are overwhelmingly ignored when it comes to consultations like this. There will be best practice guidelines coming out from Brooke, for example, from the PSHE Association, from other charities and organisations. Please read those and take on their advice, but do not copy and paste what they've written, as your response will be considered not unique and therefore likely to be deleted. Same goes for your school. If you write something for schools to use, don't just randomly share, don't just copy and paste it. And the third thing is to say that it's really long and extensive and you might have varying views. So here's some of the things that we are worried about that you can put into your own words if you'd like to. As I've said already, age restrictions is deeply concerning. It goes against evidence-based best practice guidelines from all leading organisations, as I said at the top. It negates the spiral curriculum, and it's just not what we recommend. Brooke have said it's likely to delay the provision of critical safeguarding information to children, which makes sense. But it also undermines your skill in understanding age and stage of young people in terms of local context and developmental needs. It's very unclear as to how age restrictions would be brought into SEND provision, where age is developing differently from the majority of young people. It also encourages reactivity. So there is space for flexibility around the age restrictions, but it's sort of the way it's discussed as if a problem arises, then you can then mention a topic. And the specific example they give is if in primary school, where you're no longer able to talk about pornography, you are become aware that children are accessing pornography, you could talk about that. But that's exactly the wrong way around. We don't want reactivity when it comes to RSHE. We want preventative spiral curriculum that gets to young people before they need that information. So when things occur, they have the support they need. So that's why it's a problem there's no evidence base, because the evidence base would negate this as a policy. There's also no metric for how age restrictions would be assessed or reviewed. So if you are in a school where you do talk about something before the age restrictions are, say, it should happen, what happens to you? Like, this is unprecedented within the education system. We've not seen this before. When there's age restrictions in other areas, such as sex under the age of 16, we have very clear guidelines called the Fraser Guidelines and Gillick Principles that support practitioners to help young people when there is an age limit around things. I don't understand how we put this into practice, and it doesn't tell us in the guidance. As a practitioner in school, I would be worried professionally as to how I do that. So that's something to talk about. Specifically within the case of FGM, I think we're really keen for people to have an awareness of this. So this is a quote that says, "This should not be taught before year 9, except for where schools have identified a greater risk of FGM at an earlier age, or have pupils who've been affected by FGM and need support." This is sort of already the guidance in so much as it should be taught when it's appropriate. And Manchester and Greater Manchester, there is an understanding that there is a need for our schools to teach about FGM earlier, so that young people have the information they need, and that there should be a focus on this. But so it does have an allowance there within that. The concern, though, is how is this put into place? We have a recognised higher need, but will all schools feel supported and confident teaching as and when they need, when there is a clear you shouldn't teach us before year 9, except in perhaps exceptional circumstances? It feels confusing, and that might put young people at risk and damage good safeguarding work that you're already doing. So that's a concern. Again, stop me at any point. Kat, does that make sense? I know that's your sort of area of specialism.
Yes, absolutely. That's really helpful to reference, because we know there are lots of primary schools in Manchester that, with our support as your local authority, have been delivering topics around safeguarding, if not explicitly FGM, but keeping safe around those issues. And this, exactly as Sophie's just said, it almost makes it see, this new guidance, the way it's been reframed, makes it seem like if you deliver it before year 9, it's bad practice, whereas actually nothing has much changed in the guidance, but the reframing of it makes it seem it would be more difficult for schools to navigate with parents, I think. So yes, that's useful. Thank you, Sophie.
No problem. This one is the next part is what's hit headlines, and I think perhaps rightly so, this will be what some of you will be thinking about. So there's a large conversation around gender, and particularly around gender identity within the guidance. So some things to mention. As with previous guidance, this doesn't acknowledge the difference and discussion around gender expression versus gender identity. When we talk about gender, in the moment, we're often talking about gender identity, but gender expression is a really crucial part of a young person's understanding of gender, the way that that's expressed, not just their internal sense of self. And that can help us navigate the complexity that is gender. And people have been pushing for that to be included in the guidance, and it's not there, which is a shame. The guidance doesn't in any way acknowledge the existence of trans young people, trans teachers, or trans parents in our understanding of it. They do use the phrase LGBT, they actually use LGB. So that's a concern, because those people exist, they're protected under the Equalities Act. And so there's very little thought as to how you work practically with young people and also parents and teachers in schools. However, because of the Equality Act, there is a recognition that young people need to know about gender reassignment, because that's a protected characteristic, but you're not allowed to discuss gender identity. And I'm not 100% sure, as an educator who've worked in this space for a long, long time, I would do that. I don't know how I would talk about gender reassignment without discussions of gender identity, because they're part of the similar package of things. It says clearly that gender identity shouldn't be taught because it's contested and complex. That's a direct quote. I'm in no way denying that gender is contested and complex. That seems like a justification for teaching it. We regularly teach contested and complex things. We're good at it as teachers, and children are able to handle it. So it seems odd that that's the reason for not mentioning it. There's a regular reference to the gender questioning children guidance, but that is still under consultation, is yet to be published. So there's sort of like an interconnection here. If this statutory guidance came in before that guidance does, what do you do? It doesn't recognise places beyond school as a source of information. So there's a strange sense in the guidance that the only place that young people could learn things is in school. And when they come to you with questions from beyond school, then we don't answer it. So that is something to raise. And it doesn't talk about the acknowledgement of biological sex as a spectrum, but intersex people do exist, and biology recognises that. So we have to think about that a little bit as well. This is kind of the quote here around this, with my underlining. So schools should not teach about the broader concept of gender identity is clear there. Obviously, it's for you to consider how you want to respond to that. Think about the pupils you have in your school right now, the questions they ask, the experiences they're having. Would that be supportive of their well-being or not? Okay. So a further concern is around sexuality. So teaching about lesbian, gay, bisexual and non-heterosexual identities would now be discretionary for primary schools. Now, this is largely already true. However, there is a recognition that good practice is to create safe spaces for LGBT young people in all settings and schools, and that especially is important if there are LGBT parents and families of that school. If that's not the case, then primary schools do have a discretionary ability to pick what works best for their cohort. And that is right and proper, as they should, because we need people to be able to have the right conversations at the right time with people in a supportive way. However, this guidance removes the protection specifically of mentioning around parents and families, which is a concern, because if you don't have to talk about LGBT identities, even when there are LGBT parents in the school, children will feel excluded from the classroom environment, which can have a problem for their well-being. Mainly, I would say that everybody on this call is doing careful and complicated and sophisticated work around LGBT identities across schooling, and the guidance undermines that work by putting in hard borders where we've actually been having soft conversations. So I think that's a problem. So this is what it will say. So I've put that in just so that people can kind of have that conversation. Yeah, primary schools have discretion over whether to discuss sexual orientation or families for same-sex parents. That's a change, because previously you didn't have that discretion if there were LGBT families in the school. Another area of concern is the definition of family. This is quite a significant shift. So again, the guidance says that schools can most commonly refer to families with a mother and father when discussing families. Now, for fairness and to be clear, it does then go on to say that you should be sensitive to people's circumstances and recognise variance and difference. However, this is quite a big shift, and I would argue this is not the way that primary schools are currently talking about family, because we know that families are much broader than that, and sort of only like most commonly referring to mother and father just feels like an unnecessary bit of clarification with some potentially quite damaging outcomes. Catering to a majority isn't best practice in PSHE. In fact, we specifically highlight minorities in order to combat social exclusion. That's something we do all the time. So the fact that the mother and father structure may be the most common family structure is not a reason for that being the way that we talk about families the most. But also, I'm not particularly certain that a mother and family unit is the most common. I haven't had time to crunch the numbers on the most recent census, but I think if you take into account every other family structure that exists, I would wonder whether that's true. But even if it were, that isn't necessarily what we would consider best practice. So is it emphasising the best practice and well-being of young people and students? I'm not sure. We're then going to get into thinking about sex education a little bit more. I'll start with this slide, then we'll go back. So there's a real clear understanding that primary sex education is not about preparing pupils for sexual activity in later life. It should only focus on giving pupils the information they need to understand human reproduction for their own safety. Now, it's important to say that actually there may not be a significant change for you in your setting when it comes to sex education, because for a lot of primaries, as it isn't statutory, they aren't offering sex education as part of the curriculum beyond the science curriculum. So if that's the case, then that's absolutely fine, and that should be done within consultation with parents. The problem is that if we only focus on sex, even at a very young age, of only being for procreation, then we are not capturing the reality of what sex is for most people. There is appropriate ways of talking about sex, an age and stage appropriate way, even with young children, that mentions that sex is also about pleasure and intimacy and connection with a partner. You wouldn't need to go into more detail with that, but that is actually what sex is for most people, and it's really important that we are able to say that to young people within sex education if we are providing that. If we're not, then absolutely fine. That sort of focus on what sex is continues through secondary as well, and there's been a push from sex education teachers to include things like pleasure, intimacy, connection, masturbation, solo sex within discussion of sex education at an age and stage appropriate time, so later into the years, because that again is an accurate depiction. It's also a safeguarding element, because when we talk about that sex should feel good, that's a core part of what sex is. That's the majority of the reason why people have sex. We are protecting people from having unwanted sex that they don't enjoy, which is important. And this isn't mentioned in any way at all. It's a big focus on sex for reproduction, which is an issue for a lot of queer people, but also for people who don't have sex for reproductive purposes. There's a big focus on STI prevention, which is absolutely fantastic, but is also a concern as that's not the main reason people have sex and generally has an air of heteronormativity to it. So I would say that's a concern, whatever age you're teaching, that has different levels of concern depending whether you're in primary or secondary. We're getting there, folks. Last little bit. But this is really important. There is a significant reduction in the discussion of send inclusion within this guidance. They've deleted whole paragraphs about what send inclusion should look like. Now, anyone who is practicing in settings where they're catering for SEND students will know that the guidance in 2019 wasn't particularly robust anyway, but to remove areas seems like a step backwards. And I think one of the reasons for that is age restrictions are difficult to translate across into SEND settings, as I said at the beginning. And it poses really sincere concerns and issues as to how that would happen in a way which is safe for both young people, but also practitioners professionally, to work out what they can and can't teach. So I think that is important for everybody to raise, because everybody has SEND young people in their settings that might struggle to access the provision as is being offered under this draft guidance. So this is what it says. and that's the full section that you get there. I could go on for another 3 hours. I'm not going to, because you've all listened enough already. But we wanted to highlight those 3 key areas. So just to recap, we will come to questions in a moment. I will, of course, send the slides. The recording is here. We will be sending out, as soon as there's something from the PSHE Association, for example, we'll send it out to everybody. So do keep an eye on your emails. But what I would just say is please do consider the guidance, read it, think about what we've raised here today. Please disagree with me. I absolutely love it when people disagree with me. It's one of my very favourite things. Your opinion is important. And by the way, this isn't just me, this is the Healthy Schools generally. We've had this conversation, but you may think actually there's lots that you would keep or is different to what I've said. That's absolutely fine. It's yours to respond to. These are just some of our thoughts. Also, do think about what's not in there. Have we missed opportunities where we could have included more things? Use the spreadsheet that I showed you just before to complete your consultation response so that you have it prepared to copy and paste your own answers into the document. Please consider pupil and parent engagement. It's important that they have their say, particularly maybe asking secondary pupils to comment on the sort of primary elements of things. Is that what they would have wanted when they were at primary? And do some scheduling some time to respond. This is actually the final thing I'll say. It's important. I wouldn't respond too early. Like if you're really excited to do it this afternoon, fine. But the PSHE Association, Brooke, various other charities will be bringing out their information over the next few weeks, and it would be worth reading that. So maybe hang on. I appreciate people have places they need to be and things they need to do. So we're going to do 2 things at once. So let's fall at the last hurdle. That should say summer, but it feels like winter, to be fair. So what I would love is if you could give some feedback on the session today, not just the elements I've just delivered to you, but generally. You can click here and you can use the QR code if you'd like to do it on your phone. There wasn't a huge amount of space for discussion here today, but what I am going to do is stop the recording.